Mercy, me lord. Someone's inside. Hello? Oh, please! Guess what? I got a self-revive, bozo! The solo experience in Marathon is completely different from playing with a team. So if you're a solo player, is the game for you? Could you have a good time in Marathon playing purely as a solo player? Here is my experience from the time I got with the service am playing solo, mainly with standard runners, not a rook. If you don't know, you can solo queue with a standard runner. This will put you with other solo players in a full match. However, you can also solo as a rook, which technically is a runner, but rook looks like the other UESC robots, has an ability allowing them to blend in with other enemy AI. They also spawn late into the game, but they also spawn into team games. So you go in as a solo, but there are other teams in that game. They have a set loadout, which you can't change, but you can upgrade through the faction system. Rook runs can be incredibly profitable as you're hoping to discover an area that a big fight's happened and you're just going to scavenge gear and get any leftover bits and pieces. The rook experience is like probably another whole different video and is a different play experience again. And I didn't have enough time to do that during the service slam, so we're mainly talking about the standard solo gameplay. So whatever you take away from this, also think that there's another solo experience on top of this, which would be playing as rook. Right, let's start with the general atmosphere in solo games. The tension is cranked to 11. You hear everything now as you creep around the map. There was a lot of ambient noise that I missed in teams because we were just talking over it. But now, with nothing but my own thoughts, you can hear the buildings creaking, the leaves rustling, the UESC stomping around. Or was it really AI, or was it a runner? I honestly feel this is how Bungie wanted you to experience the maps. In my opinion, solos actually provide a much better opportunity to soak in the atmosphere of the maps. And it's the exact feeling that got me into extraction shooters in the first place. This constant anxiety that someone's watching you, someone's stalking you, and that one mistake could finish your run. To some of you, this will sound awful. And this means that this is probably not the game for you to play solo. To others, this will sound fun and exciting. Let's talk about the PvE playstyle. This game in solos becomes a stealth game. The number one priority as a solo player is make no noise. When you combine that with the atmosphere of the game, I find it really enjoyable. You can use a knife on lower tier enemies, and in fact, you can actually make some pretty nutty knife builds that are actually quite powerful that you can use against higher tier robots as well to stealthily take them down. You can also just use silenced weapons. I went in with a silenced magnum, which was very effective in the solo playlist. It was absolutely pathetic against players because I couldn't aim, but it was great against bots. The main thing to avoid is getting caught in a loud gunfight with the AI that will attract other players who will third party you. When you combine this stealth playstyle with your contracts, it can feel really fun having to sneak into an area, grab the objective, do the thing, and then get out without making a sound. An additional bonus of playing Marathon like a stealth game is that you get to learn positioning and safe pathways through the map, where enemy traps spawn, and in general I just felt like I was soaking in more map knowledge playing solo, just because you're just going a little bit slower, and I really like that. In solo, I was taking much better note of what items spawned where, because I didn't feel like I was like holding my teammates up. I could spend a little bit more time reading items, learning about them, tracking them, reading the descriptions of the calls or the implants or the things I was picking up, because no one was really waiting for me. And in other cases, I was just taking note of where stuff spawned, where health spawned, where ammo spawned. And a really good example was I was creeping around these crates and I found tucked away like this medical stash. and it had like a really high level health items in there and shield items in there, and it also had a self revive. And I never would have like gone around this little corner to have a look unless I was playing solo and kind of creeping around. And now every time I go past there, I'm like, oh, I'll check if it's spawned, because last time I got a self res there. So that's a nice example of like just how you might soak in some more map knowledge playing solo. As for questing, completing contracts seemed pretty achievable solo. In fact, sometimes I thought it was easier to complete stuff solo than within teams. When you're with a team, it's like, depending on where you spawn, everyone goes, what contract do you have? Okay, mine's the closest, we do mine first. And in many cases, I maybe didn't get to do my contract because we ran out of time, or maybe we didn't do my teammates' contract because we ran out of time for them. So in solo, I mean, that's your only mission, is to do the thing that you've gone in with, unless you're trying to hunt down players. So it can be, I don't know if I would say it's more efficient than teams. The issue with doing your contracts is it can be very hard to clear PvE. And it can be hard, like if you get caught up with bots, it might push you off an objective and you might not be able to get your thing done. But it is very achievable. You just got to use certain strategies to get it done, which we'll talk about in a second. You also get an extra 20% reputation gain for being solo, because when you're in a team match, you actually do get reputation from your other teammates completing their contracts. This kind of makes up for that because you're by yourself. I don't know how difficult contracts will get in the future, especially contracts in endgame areas like on the marathon itself. And maybe then this conversation would be a little bit different, saying, hey, some of these contracts are really tough because I'm a solo player. But definitely early contracts seemed very achievable and fine, with the exception of if you got caught in a PvE battle, you would have to, restart and try again. The PvE playstyle of solo queues definitely favors certain runners. Without doubt, the majority, if not nearly all the players I saw, including me, were running assassins who can go invisible. They go invisible with a trait, and they can also go invisible in smoke. A lot of people realized it was a stealth game, and so they chose the stealth runner. Assassin also is very strong and has like advantageous abilities for extracting, being able to place smoke on the exfil and go invis as the timer runs out. It's a very, very safe way to extract rather than just standing out in the open. If you don't choose assassin, there are other classes that are pretty strong too, like triage and recon are also very strong picks. Triage for the self heals, recon for the ability to ping an enemy and basically hunt them down unless they have a way of countering that. So I think it's pretty reasonable to say that like in solo plays, there's definitely going to be some very strong runners compared to team plays where you can make up for any strengths or weaknesses. Now let's talk about PvP play style in solos. Of course, it's a lot of trying to win the stealth game. Don't make any noise. Hope your opponent makes some noise and they get caught up with the AI, and then you can third party them. But there are some other really interesting things that happen in solo play. The risk versus reward in PvP, I think, is much higher because gear and equipment has more value in 1v1s. For example, if you take in a purple shield into a team match and you walk around the corner by yourself and you face in 3 enemies, your purple shield is not saving you. The time to kill is pretty quick in this game, and team shooting obviously quickens that and will overpower the purple shield. Oppositely, if you round a corner in solo queue and it's now 1v1 and you have a better shield than your opponent, you are now in a much better position. You risk a lot more in solos. There's no second chances unless you got a self revive, but you do feel the advantage of having better gear. The risk versus reward ratio is higher in solos, and that kind of adds to the tension and the atmosphere. It's not just weapons though and your shields, but like equipment too. Self revives become insanely important in solos. Utility like claymores are incredibly powerful. So once again, you risk a lot more, but in my opinion, you also get more value out of that equipment in solos. The other interesting thing that happens is that certain strategies become viable in solos. For example, melee is actually pretty strong. It's very strong both in PvE and in PvP in solos, and obviously it suits the stealth type of gameplay. Finally, when it comes to PvP, an uncoordinated team, in my opinion, often feels worse than just playing solo. This sounds a little bit like, it sounds like, oh, I'm the best player ever. No. For example, if you have a friend that always just rushes into the battle, and maybe they haven't played many extraction shooters yet, and they just keep dying first, and you're playing in teams, this does put you at a huge disadvantage, especially if you're against a well-coordinated team. And I actually lost more rounds playing in teams than I did with solos. I did a whole day. Now I'm not attacking my community here. Let me just explain. I did a whole day of playing with my community. I said, guys, we do one match each. We'll line up in the Discord and we're just going to play some games together. We did not win a single game out of 8 hours. And we had very good players on the team. And it was nothing to do with individual skill when you have team plays. I think it's to do with how well you gel together as a crew. And everyone I played with, we hadn't played before, right? And I think once the more you play extraction shooters, you realize you start to really gel with other people's play styles, and that makes your team so much better. It's one of the real satisfying things about team play is when you start covering each other's angles and corners, and you take certain pathways, and you start thinking very similarly without having to communicate everything. And if you don't play with someone very often and they die first, you can often just throw the entire match. And that's kind of the experience I had when I was playing with people that I didn't know very well from my community, which was still fun, and we'll probably do more of it. But it was interesting that we didn't win a single match like that, even though we had geared players, we had knowledgeable players, when people who played as many hours as I had, 30 plus hours over the weekends, over the server slam, and we didn't win. And then I went into solos and I won back-to-back matches and came out absolutely stacked. So when it comes to PvP, I think you can also think about it that way. It's sometimes an uncoordinated team is actually more disadvantages is worse than just playing solo and playing slow as a solo player. Let's talk about if anyone was friendly in solo matches, because I did want to test this and I did use proximity chat. And surprisingly, yes, I had lots of people shoot inside, but I actually had a lot of rounds where people proximity chatted back and I spoke to people. There were Aussies, and Aussies can be pretty friendly, and I don't know, different servers will have different vibes, but I did effectively make contact with people and talk to people and team up with people. And I had some salty other players when we teamed up and took on another solos. They were one guy sounded like he was from Bungie. He's like, oh, okay, I'm writing this down. Mylan. Oh, Mylan's teaming up. I was like, okay. What, are you going to report me for teaming up in the solos? Right. When it comes to lore and story, it's actually so nice to take your time in the menus. Listen, there's audio logs. There's terminals to read. There's lore in there. It's nice to take your time in the menus and try to digest the UI without your team waiting for you. And so if you are into the universe of Marathon, I think you can experience it as a solo player and enjoy it. I do. I think you can get behind it. As long as you're into stealth games and playing it as a stealth game, I think you can have a really good time here from a story point of view as well. Are there any obvious negatives about playing solo? The event, I don't know if are you meant to call them events lockdown? It's a public event that happens in Marsh, Die Marsh, and there's also higher level AI with gold shields as well, these bosses. Those things seemed very difficult as a solo player. I was able to complete a couple rounds of lockdown solo. It was not easy though, and I couldn't complete the whole thing. You got to try to do it 3 times to get even better loot. I couldn't do it 3 times. I didn't even attempt to take on a gold tier boss solo. We tried to take one down as a team and it was very difficult. So I don't know how that's going to go as a solo player. I don't know how far you can progress and how powerful you can be, and if we'll work out weaknesses a little bit more, and we need to spam EMP grenades and maybe use this build and maybe backstab with toxin and let that do damage. I'm sure there'll be strategies that develop, but for the server slam and working it out then, it did feel very unattainable, and hopefully though you can get enough power to do some of that end game stuff. Similarly, end game maps the Marathon, we don't really know how that's going to feel as a solo player, and I think that's probably the biggest risk with solo games at the moment, is how is that really hard stuff going to feel, and if you can overcome it, if you keep grinding and keep getting better and max out all your passives and get the right build together and get the right cores and get the right implants and get the best guns, like, can you actually do it? I don't know yet. That's a big unknown with that stuff. Right, so without even speaking about the solo experience of a Rook player, I was incredibly satisfied with how solo play felt. I was a bit worried it wasn't going to be a different experience and it was going to be a little bit too sweaty and not atmospheric and no tension, and I actually really, really liked it. And I think you will like it too, as long as you're up for playing in a certain way and treating the game a bit more like a stealth game and taking your time a little bit more and sort of soaking in the atmosphere, exploring, and getting into the universe of Marathon. I think you can have a really good time in solos. If you'd like to support the channel and cannot think of a comment, you can leave the word solo Marathon. As usual, it's been a pleasure. This is Marlon Games. Peace.